President-elect Donald Trump is now asking the U.S. Supreme Court to pause Friday's sentencing in his hush money case. The emergency appeal came one day after a New York State appeals court denied Trump's request to have it postponed. That's Stormy Daniels. That's part of that hush money case. We are joined now by legal expert Whitney Traylor. So let's talk about this. This sentencing was supposed to happen soon.
Yeah.
This week.
It's supposed to happen on Friday, and it may still happen on Friday. So they filed this emergency appeal with the U.S. Supreme Court. And so because as you mentioned on the lead-in, on Tuesday, the New York Court of Appeals denied it. And so now they filed with the Supreme Court. And so the prosecution has until tomorrow to file their response before the sentencing, which is supposed to happen on Friday.
The Supreme Court does not have to field this case. And in many cases, you wouldn't think they would, but
right.
Of course, everything seems a little bit different these days.
Yeah, no, this is a really unique situation. I mean, we've obviously never been here. This is creating new law. This is precedent. But as the trial court judge, he said, I want to demonstrate that no one's above the law. So I want to, go forward with it, even as he's contemplating different potential.
To be clear, Judge Merchan has said that he's not going to sentence President-elect Trump to any time.
Right.
But he is just going to complete the formality of the case. The case will end with this sentencing of a non-sentence.
Exactly, and I think they call it in New York an unconditional discharge. So the conviction stands, but the case is closed without jail time or a fine or probation. So yeah, that's what he's suggesting. And what the Trump team is saying is, hey, let us stay everything, stop it while we can go through the appellate process. And, and they're arguing presidential immunity and other things, the supremacy clause.
But that's not what they've already gone through. You said the New York State Court of Appeals. That is the appellate process.
Right, yeah, exactly. But they're saying, hey, we want to kind of exhaust it, so stay this while it's happening. And they're arguing national security as he's supposed to be coming into office on the 20th.
Okay, so when this judge does this sentence, which we talked about, probably it's not any jail time or something like that. What do they weigh in that penalty? Would this be for anybody in a similar situation that not even, not anybody even well known? Like, okay,
yeah,
that's it. You don't do jail time, probably.
Right. No, it's a great point. I think the judge is going to take into a few different issues like Trump's ability to govern, unencumbered by this, national security. He wants to address the presidential immunity, and he also wants to, and he's stated this in his rulings, I want to point out that no one's above the law and that the system does work. This was a conviction, and the judges want to respect jury
verdict, yeah.
Right, because we're one of the few countries in the world with a jury system, and so the judges go out of their way to respect those decisions.
So the debate surrounding the possibility of a presidential self-pardon existed at the end of President Trump's first term.
Yes.
We still haven't walked through that, but this would be a case that is immune from any sort of pardon from the federal level.
Correct, because these are state charges, so a presidential pardon wouldn't work. But I remember Trump at some point saying he would never accept a pardon or put a self-pardon because it implies guilt. And legal scholars are conflicted about that. Does it mean guilt? And the Supreme Court hasn't ruled on it. They've said in dicta that it does imply guilt and an admission of guilt, but they haven't said it in a formal actual opinion.
Well, it's so hard to forecast what's going to happen these days anyways with the Supreme Court. And anything involving President-elect Trump seems to work on a different scale and meter than we used to. What do you think is going to happen here? I mean, if the court goes one way or the other, how do you think they word that?
That's a great question because I think Trump's arguments are weak legally from a legal perspective. The immunity decision doesn't apply. All of these things took place before he was in office as a private citizen trying to campaign. So I think the arguments are weak. You don't know what the Supreme Court's going to do anymore, but I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't grant the stay, knowing that there would not be a penalty because of Judge Merchan's forecasting where he's going.
We should know in the next 48 hours.
Yes, we should. Yeah, for sure.
Right?
Yeah, we're going to know. By Friday. So the Supreme Court asked for the prosecution to respond by tomorrow, and so they want to issue a decision before Friday. So
Well, we'll talk about it more.
Yeah,
we'll
I
get
may
a
be
chance
back.
to bring Whitney
Yeah, I was
back.
just going to say, you got more to talk about, Whitney.
Exactly.
We always like our visits. There's always something to talk about. Whitney Traylor, thanks as always.
For sure.